The ancient world was far more advanced than you were taught. Our ancestors engineered marvels that modern science struggles to replicate, from self-healing concrete to a bronze computer that mapped the stars. By the end of this journey, you will see history not as a slow march of progress, but as a story of brilliant peaks and forgotten valleys. What secret allowed a Roman harbor to stand for 2,000 years? How could a Viking ship navigate under a sunless sky? The answers lie in 20 forgotten technologies that quietly shaped our world. What does it say about us that so much genius could simply vanish? That lump of corroded bronze was more than a relic. It was a ghost of a civilization that saw the universe not as a mystery to be feared, but as a magnificent machine to be understood. For decades, the Antikythera Mechanism was a silent, rusted puzzle. It was only when historians like Derek de Solla Price began the painstaking work of reconstruction, both physically and conceptually, that its true nature emerged. They were not looking at an ornate statue or a simple timepiece. They were staring at an ancient computer. Its intricate system of over 30 interlocking bronze gears, precisely cut by hand, did something extraordinary. It could calculate the positions of the sun and moon, predict eclipses years in advance, and even track the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. Think about that for a moment. This device modeled the irregular, wobbling orbit of the moon with a mechanical genius that would not be matched again until the great astronomical clocks of medieval Europe, more than a millennium later. It was a portable planetarium, a cosmic calendar, and a testament to a scientific mindset that sought to bring order to the heavens. The existence of the Antikythera Mechanism shatters the old narrative of slow, linear progress. It whispers of a Hellenistic world where engineering and astronomy walked hand in hand, where the knowledge required to build such a device was taught, shared, and applied. And then that whisper was largely silenced when great centers of learning like the Library of Alexandria faced their own challenges. The blueprints for such wonders, the theoretical texts that explained their principles, may have turned to ash. The mechanism is not just a device, it is a question. What other chapters of human ingenuity were lost in the fire, leaving behind only cryptic fragments for us to find? This theme of forgotten mastery is echoed not in delicate gears, but in something immensely solid, a material that literally held an empire together. That question of lost knowledge finds its answer not in libraries, but in the very stones beneath our feet. Look up at the dome of the Pantheon in Rome. It is a single, breathtaking expanse of concrete, wider than any dome built for over 1,300 years after its completion. No steel skeleton holds it up. No modern reinforcement keeps it from collapsing under its own weight. It has simply stood there for nearly 2,000 years, defying gravity and time. This is the legacy of Roman concrete, a material so advanced that we are only now decoding its secrets. The Romans called it opus cementitium, and it was nothing short of a technological revolution. Before it, construction was limited by the size of stone you could quarry and lift. With it, they could pour liquid stone into wooden molds, creating curves, arches, and vast, open spaces that redefined architecture. They built aqueducts that marched across continents, colosseums that hosted tens of thousands, and harbors that braved the relentless sea. But what made it so special? Modern concrete, known as Portland cement, has a fundamental weakness. It cracks over time, especially when exposed to seawater, which corrodes its internal structure. Roman concrete did the opposite. It grew stronger. For decades, this seemed like alchemy. Then, researchers like geologist Marie Jackson began to literally dissect ancient Roman samples, searching for their ghost in the mortar. The key, they discovered, was a specific ingredient the Romans had in abundance, a volcanic ash from the region of Pozzuoli near Naples. They called it pozzolana. When this ash was mixed with lime and, crucially, seawater, a remarkable chemical reaction occurred. Instead of simply drying out, the mixture formed a rare, interlocking crystal called aluminum tobamorite. These crystals are incredibly resilient, and they actually continue to form over centuries, filling in any tiny cracks that begin to appear. The concrete, in essence, heals itself. This is why the Roman harbor at Portus, built by Emperor Claudius, still sits intact beneath the Mediterranean waves, while modern concrete seawalls crumble after decades. It is why the Colosseum, though battered, has survived earthquakes that leveled later cities. The Romans had unlocked a recipe for near-eternal construction, a sustainable technology that used local, natural materials to create structures meant to last for the ages. And then that recipe faded from common knowledge. Today, engineers are racing to reverse engineer this ancient wisdom, hoping to build our own future on foundations as solid as the past. This mastery over materials extended from the monumental to the intimately personal, transforming not just cityscapes, but the very concept of comfort within the home. That same ingenuity that built eternal monuments also mastered the art of everyday comfort. While the Pantheon's dome defied the heavens, a quieter revolution was happening beneath the feet of ordinary Romans, at least those with means. In the chill of a British or Germanic winter, stepping into a Roman bathhouse must have felt like crossing into another world. The marble floors were not cold to the touch, they were pleasantly, uniformly warm. Heat rose gently from below, swirling up through the walls, holding the damp air of the caldarium, the hot room, in a luxurious embrace. This was not magic, it was the Hypocaust, the ancient world's answer to central heating. The principle was elegant in its simplicity. A large wood-burning furnace, the Prefurnium, was stoked continuously by slaves or servants. Its flames did not directly heat the room, instead, they heated the air in a hollow space beneath the raised floor. This floor was supported by a grid of short, sturdy pillars made of stacked bricks or tiles, creating a hidden plenum chamber. As the hot air expanded, it was drawn through this chamber, its heat transferring to the solid stone or concrete of the floor above. But the Romans did not stop there. They embedded rectangular clay tubes called tubuli within the walls themselves. The rising hot air would travel up these channels, turning entire walls into radiant heaters before finally escaping through carefully placed flues in the roof. The result was a steady, ambient warmth that permeated the entire space, a feat of climate control that would not become common again until the 19th century. The famed architect Vitruvius wrote detailed instructions for building these systems, stressing the need for a steady draft and proper insulation with layers of tiles to maximize efficiency and, crucially, to prevent fires. The scale of this engineering becomes staggering when applied to the great imperial bath complexes, like the baths of Caracalla in Rome. These were not mere buildings, they were thermodynamic cities. To evenly heat acres of marble floors, soaring vaulted ceilings, and multiple vast pools required a labyrinth of subterranean furnaces, an army of stokers, and a profound intuitive grasp of how heat and air move. It was public health infrastructure, a social luxury, and a bold statement of technological dominance over nature. The Hypocaust was more than a heating system. It was a philosophy of living, a belief that civilization meant not just shelter from the elements, but mastery over them. This drive to shape the very air we breathe to create ideal environments would find a breathtaking parallel far to the east, in a desert kingdom where the challenge was not to create heat, but to banish it. While Rome mastered the flow of heat, a forgotten jar from the sands of Iraq hints at a civilization toying with a far more elusive power. In the quiet vaults of the National Museum of Iraq, you will find a simple clay pot about the size of a man's fist, dated to the Parthian period over 2,000 years ago. It looks unremarkable until you learn what was found inside. Sealed within the jar was a rolled copper sheet forming a cylinder, and nestled inside that an iron rod. The assembly was held in place with an asphalt plug, a stopper that also served as a clever insulator. To the eyes of a modern observer, the arrangement is eerily familiar. It looks for all the world like a primitive battery. This is the artifact known as the Baghdad battery, discovered in 1936 near the village of Qanat. The theory, first proposed by German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig, is compelling. If this jar were filled with an acidic electrolyte, something as common as vinegar or grape juice, a chemical reaction would occur. The acidic liquid would interact with the two different metals, the copper and the iron, setting up a flow of electrons. In simple terms, it would generate a small electric current, around 1 volt, roughly the same as a modern watch battery. The idea is tantalizing. Could ancient artisans have been experimenting with electroplating, using a weak current to deposit a thin layer of gold or silver onto jewelry? Some reconstructions have shown it is possible, creating a faint gilding on a small object. Or was its purpose something else entirely, perhaps medical or even religious, a device to create a mysterious tingle for ceremonial use? The truth is, we do not know for certain. Many mainstream scholars, like metallurgy expert Dr. Paul Craddock, remain skeptical of the battery hypothesis. They point out that no wires have ever been found with such jars, and that the asphalt seal would make regularly refilling the electrolyte quite difficult. It is possible these vessels were simply used for the safe storage of sacred scrolls, with the iron and copper acting as protective casings. But here is what is undeniable. Even if it was not a battery, the artifact reveals a sophisticated understanding of materials. The choice of copper and iron, the use of asphalt as an insulator, the very design of the vessel, all point to a culture with advanced knowledge of chemical properties and metallurgy. It represents a profound curiosity about the natural world. The Baghdad battery, whether a functional device or a fascinating accident of preservation, stands as a powerful symbol. It challenges our comfortable timeline of invention, reminding us that the spark of insight can ignite in isolation. It is a single, quiet question mark from the past, a suggestion that our ancestors might have glimpsed the invisible forces of electricity long before we credited them with the knowledge. This pursuit of harnessing natural forces did not end with a faint spark in a clay pot. It flowed directly into one of antiquity's most elegant and powerful technologies, a mastery not of electrons but of the relentless shaping power of water. That same understanding of materials and forces found its ultimate expression not in a single object, but in a vein of life carved through the very bones of the earth. In the searing heat of the Persian desert, where the sun bleaches the land and rain is a forgotten memory, you can walk for miles and see nothing but barren rock and dust. Yet beneath your feet, in the cool, silent darkness, a river flows. This is the Qanat, one of humanity's most brilliant and enduring answers to a fundamental question: how do you bring life to a land that has none? The concept is deceptively simple in its genius. At the foot of a mountain range, where rainfall and snowmelt seep into the ground to form a hidden water table, ancient engineers would begin digging a mother well, sometimes plunging hundreds of feet down to reach the precious water. From there, they did not dig a vertical well for drawing buckets. Instead, they began carving a gently sloping underground tunnel, heading straight for the distant plain or city that needed water. The slope was everything, meticulously calculated by eye and experience to be just steep enough for gravity to pull the water along, but not so steep that it would erode the tunnel walls with violent speed. Every 100 feet or so, they would dig a vertical shaft back up to the surface. These shafts served two vital purposes: First, they provided air for the diggers working in the suffocating darkness below. Second, and more importantly for the centuries to come, they provided access for maintenance. Generations of workers, known as mukanis, would descend these shafts to clear silt, repair collapses, and ensure the life-giving flow never stopped. The scale of this endeavor is almost unimaginable. Some Qanat systems stretched for over 30 miles, with thousands of access shafts dotting the landscape like a line of mysterious craters. Building one was a monumental communal effort, often taking years or even decades. It required not just brute strength, but a profound knowledge of geology, hydrology, and geometry passed down through families. This shared reliance on the Qanat shaped entire societies. Water distribution was governed by strict, fair laws, and the social structure revolved around the maintenance of this subterranean lifeline. It was technology that built community. The result was nothing short of alchemy. The desert bloomed. Cities like Persepolis and Gonabad rose in places otherwise uninhabitable. The water, sheltered from the evaporating sun, arrived cool and clean. This Persian technology was so effective it became an empire's most valuable export. The Romans adopted it, calling it a cuniculus, and used it to supply frontier towns. It traveled the Silk Road all the way to China, where similar systems, called Kores, transformed the arid landscapes of Xinjiang. And in a stunning testament to its design, many of these ancient Qanats are still in use today, providing water to Iranian farms and villages after 3,000 years. They represent a model of sustainable engineering that modern megaprojects often fail to achieve, a harmony with the landscape rather than a conquest of it. While the Qanat brought life, giving water silently through the earth, another civilization would learn to command water's explosive power, not for nourishment, but for a spectacle that defined an era. The silent, sustaining flow of the Qanat stands in stark contrast to another ancient mastery of fluids, one designed not to nurture life, but to unleash terror upon the sea. Picture the narrow waters of the Bosporus in the 7th century, a vital artery now choked with the ships of a besieging Arab fleet. The very survival of Constantinople, the last bastion of the Roman Empire in the east, hangs in the balance. Then, from the decks of the smaller Byzantine warships, the dromons, a strange sight emerges. Brass tubes, like the heads of monstrous beasts, are maneuvered into position. With a thunderous roar and a great hiss of steam, they project not solid projectiles, but a roaring stream of liquid flame. This fire did not simply splash and extinguish upon hitting the water. It clung and raged, spreading across the waves as if the sea itself had been set alight. To the opposing sailors, it must have seemed like sorcery, a weapon straight from the depths of myth. This was Greek fire, the Byzantine Empire's most closely guarded secret and its ultimate naval superweapon. The psychological effect was as devastating as the physical one. The mere threat of its use could scatter fleets, and its actual deployment in battles like the defense of Constantinople in 673 turned the tide of history, preserving the empire for centuries to come. So what was this mysterious substance? Its exact formula was a state secret of the highest order, known only to the emperor and a few trusted chemists, often from the same family. It was prepared in secret workshops and loaded onto ships by special imperial guards. What we know from historical accounts, like those of the princess and historian Anna Komnene, points to a terrifyingly advanced form of chemical warfare. The base was almost certainly a form of crude petroleum, likely from natural surface wells around the Black Sea. To this, they likely added resins to make it sticky, and quicklime, a substance that ignites upon contact with water. This latter ingredient is key, explaining why the fire seemed to intensify when sailors tried to douse it with seawater. The delivery system was just as ingenious as the fuel itself. The mixture was pressurized in heated bronze tanks aboard ship and then expelled through a pump, a siphon, whose nozzle may have been ignited by a permanent flame. The operator, protected by a large iron shield, could direct this jet of liquid destruction with frightening precision. The entire system was a masterpiece of applied chemistry and engineering, a weapon so effective that its very mystery became part of its power. And then it vanished, with the slow decline and final fall of Constantinople in 1453. The precise art of compounding true Greek fire was lost. Emperors died, chemists took their secrets to the grave, and the formula faded into legend. It remains one of history's most potent examples of a technology that was not merely invented, but zealously guarded until it was forgotten by the world it once saved. This obsession with controlling a powerful, elemental force finds a far more peaceful, yet no less precise, parallel in a device that sought not to command fire, but to measure the heavens themselves. The terrifying spectacle of Greek fire was a weapon of desperate defense, but the human desire to understand the cosmos has always been a quieter, more universal ambition. Far from the steam and flame of Constantinople, in a forest in eastern Germany, a metal detectorist's illicit dig in 1999 uncovered something that would quietly rewrite the prehistory of Europe. It was a bronze disc about the size of a dinner plate, green with age and studded with gold. To the looters who first found it, it was just treasure to be melted down. To the archaeologists who later recovered it in a dramatic police sting, it was a revelation. This is the Nebra Sky Disc, and at 3,600 years old, it is the oldest known concrete representation of the cosmos in the entire world. The design is breathtaking in its clarity. Against a deep blue-green patinated background, a cluster of 7 golden dots is unmistakably the Pleiades star cluster. A large golden circle and a crescent moon shine beside them. Most remarkably, 2 golden arcs were later added along the disk's edges. Modern analysis shows these arcs precisely mark the angle between the sunrise and sunset points at the solstices, as seen from the Mittelberg Hill where the disk was buried. A final addition, a curved band at the bottom, might represent a solar boat, a mythological vessel carrying the sun across the sky. This was no mere decoration. Archaeologist Harold Meller and his team argue it was a sophisticated, portable astronomical tool. By aligning the disk with the horizon, a Bronze Age priest or elder could use it to correct their lunar calendar. When the crescent moon appeared next to the Pleiades cluster in the sky, just as it did on the disk, it signaled the need to insert an extra lunar month to keep the agricultural and ritual year in sync with the solar seasons. This was a matter of survival. Planting and harvest, crucial communal ceremonies, all depended on knowing the true time of year. The implications are staggering. This disk, crafted in what is now Germany around 1600 BCE, demonstrates a complex, codified understanding of the solar cycle that rivals contemporary knowledge in Egypt or Mesopotamia. It suggests a network of shared astronomical ideas stretching across vast distances of prehistoric Europe. The Nebra Sky Disc tells us that the people of the Northern European Bronze Age were not isolated tribes but cosmologists. They looked up, saw patterns, and sought to bring that celestial order down to Earth, forging it in bronze and gold. It is a testament to a shared human drive, the need to find our place in the universe by mapping it. This instinct to encode vital information, to create a physical reference for complex knowledge, would find another profound expression not in the stars, but in the intricate knots of an empire's memory. The Nebra Sky Disc mapped the heavens in bronze, but in the Andes, an empire recorded its entire world in knots. The Inca, ruling the largest empire in the pre-Columbian Americas, faced a monumental challenge of administration without a system of writing as we know it. Their solution was the Quipu, a deceptively simple device of colored chords that formed a complex, three-dimensional language of data. At its heart, a Quipu was a main chord from which dozens, sometimes hundreds, of pendant chords were hung. Each pendant could have subsidiary cords of its own, creating a cascading, fibrous tree of information. The genius lay in the encoding. Knots were tied using a decimal positional system. A figure 8 knot represented the number 1. A long knot with multiple turns could represent 2 through 9, depending on the number of turns. And most importantly, a cluster of knots higher up a cord represented tens, hundreds, or thousands, their position indicating their place value, much like the digits in our number system. But numbers were only part of the story. The colors of the cords were a vital semantic layer. A red cord might denote the emperor's personal storehouses, while a brown cord could represent a specific village potato harvest. The spin and ply of the yarn, the direction a knot was tied, all carried meaning. Through this tactile system, Quipu, the trained record keepers, could log census data, track tributes and taxes, and manage the intricate logistics that moved supplies across a mountain empire spanning thousands of miles. Recent research by anthropologists like Sabine Heil has uncovered something even more profound. By studying quipus from remote Peruvian villages that survived the conquest, she found that certain structural patterns, the way cords are combined or wrapped, may encode narrative information such as genealogies or historical events. This suggests the quipu was not merely an accounting tool, but potentially a full writing system, one that communicated through touch and spatial relationships rather than visual symbols. It represents a completely different cognitive pathway for storing and transmitting complex knowledge. The Spanish conquistadors, failing to recognize this as literature or record-keeping, systematically destroyed vast archives of quipus, dismissing them as idolatrous objects or mere trinkets. In that act, an entire library of Andean history, science, and poetry, encoded in fiber and knot, was lost forever. The quipu stands as a haunting reminder that technology is not just about materials, but about the architecture of thought itself. And just as the quipu measured the tangible wealth of an empire, another civilization sought to measure something far more elusive and universal: the steady, invisible flow of time itself. The quipu measured an empire's wealth, but in the sun-drenched city of Alexandria, a different kind of measurement was being perfected, one that sought to quantify the most elusive resource of all. Time for most ancient civilizations was a fluid concept, marked by the sun's arc or the slow drip of a simple water bowl. But in the 3rd century before the Common Era, a brilliant inventor named Ctesibius looked at that dripping water and saw not just a measure but a problem to be solved. The basic water clock or clepsydra had a frustrating flaw. As the water level in its reservoir fell, the water pressure decreased, causing the drip to slow down. Time itself, as measured by the clock, would gradually stretch and distort. Ctesibius, a man celebrated for his work with pneumatics and hydraulics, devised an elegant solution that would define precision for centuries. He created a system with a constant, regulated inflow. Imagine a steady stream of water filling a receiving chamber. Inside this chamber, a carefully calibrated float would rise with the water level. This float was connected to a vertical rack of teeth. As it rose, it turned a small gear, a pinion, which in turn moved a pointer across a graduated dial. The beauty of this design was its self-correction. The inflow of water was kept constant from a separate, large reservoir, so the receiving chamber filled at a perfectly steady rate. The rising float, therefore, translated that steady flow into a perfectly uniform motion on the dial. This was not just an improvement, it was a revolution in regularity. For the first time, an hour in the morning could be guaranteed to last exactly as long as an hour in the afternoon, regardless of the season or weather. The impact was immediate and profound. In the courts of Alexandria, lawyers now had their speeches timed with impartial, liquid precision. Night watches in the city and in military camps could be divided into perfectly equal shifts, tightening security and discipline. Astronomers like the great Hipparchus could now time the movements of the stars and planets with a reliability never before possible, laying crucial groundwork for celestial mechanics. The Roman architect Vitruvius would later describe Ctesibius's clock in meticulous detail, preserving its blueprint for medieval Islamic and European engineers. This water clock became the heartbeat of organized society, the silent regulator in temples, agoras, and observatories. It represented a fundamental shift in human consciousness, from observing time to commanding it, from living by nature's rhythms to imposing our own precise order upon the day. This relentless pursuit of precision, of mastering fundamental forces to impose order, was not confined to the quiet drip of water in a scholar's workshop. That same drive for exactitude was desperately needed out on the open sea, where the stakes were not just punctuality, but survival itself. Ctesibius's water clock brought order to the city, but far to the north, navigators faced a chaos no timepiece could tame. The open North Atlantic was a realm of perpetual gray, where the sun could vanish for days behind a seamless blanket of cloud. In this featureless void, the legendary Viking longships somehow found their way, crossing thousands of miles of open ocean to reach Iceland, Greenland, and the shores of a new world. Norse sagas hint at their secret, mentioning a solarstein, a sunstone, a crystal that could reveal the hidden sun. For centuries, this was dismissed as pure myth, a magical artifact of storytellers. Then science caught up with the saga. Researchers realized that certain transparent crystals like calcite, cordierite, or tourmaline have a remarkable property called birefringence. They polarize light, splitting a light beam into two. The sky itself emits polarized light in a pattern that circles the sun, a pattern invisible to our naked eye. A navigator holding such a crystal up to the overcast sky and rotating it would see a change in brightness or color within the stone. By finding the point where the two beams of light within the crystal matched in intensity, they could pinpoint the sun's location behind the clouds with astonishing accuracy, often within a few degrees. Optical physicist Guy Ropparts and his team tested this theory in real-world conditions, using a calcite crystal under heavily overcast skies. The method worked. A skilled user could establish east-west and north-south lines, creating a celestial crosshair on a completely gray day. This was not a standalone magic trick. It was part of a sophisticated suite of non-magnetic navigation techniques. Vikings watched the flight paths of seabirds returning to land, studied the patterns of ocean swells shaped by distant coastlines, and used primitive bearing dials to maintain a course. But the sunstone provided the foundational fix, the one piece of celestial data that made all the other clues fall into place. It turned the impenetrable gray dome into a readable map. This technological edge explains the impossible voyages. While much of medieval Europe clung to coastlines, Norse ships struck out across the deepest ocean with a confidence born of crystal-clear science disguised as seafaring lore. Their mastery, however, was not confined to the sea. The same pragmatic ingenuity that charted courses under clouded skies was applied with equal brilliance to the very land they sought to cultivate. The Vikings navigated a world of gray, but another civilization transformed a world of green into a living larder. For generations, the Amazon rainforest was seen by outsiders as a pristine, untamed wilderness, a green desert where only small, nomadic tribes could survive. The soil, they believed, was too thin, too acidic to support large-scale agriculture. This narrative, however, crumbles when you step into a patch of Terra Preta, the dark earth of the Amazon. Scattered across the basin are islands of profound fertility, soil so rich and black it looks like it belongs in the farmlands of the Midwest, not the middle of a tropical rainforest. This is not a natural accident. It is the signature of a lost civilization, a deliberate, centuries-long act of environmental engineering. created by pre-Columbian peoples between 450 years before the Common Era and 950 years after. Terra Preta is an anthropogenic soil, literally meaning human-made. Its recipe was a masterclass in sustainable alchemy. Communities took the region's poor, reddish soil and transformed it by adding a precise mixture of charcoal from slow-burned organic matter, broken pottery fragments, compost, and animal manure. The charcoal, or biochar, is the star ingredient. It is incredibly porous, acting like a microscopic coral reef that provides a perfect home for beneficial microbes and fungi. These tiny organisms help retain nutrients and water, while the pottery shards improve drainage and aeration. The result is a self-regenerating super soil. Unlike modern fertilizers that wash away, the nutrients in Terra Preta are locked into this stable carbon matrix, resisting leaching and actually rebuilding itself over time. Scientists like Bruno Glaser have analyzed these soils and found they can be up to 3 times more productive than surrounding Earth and contain staggering amounts of sequestered carbon, making them a model for combating climate change today. This was not casual gardening. It was large-scale, intelligent land management that allowed for complex, settled societies to flourish. These communities were not passively living in the jungle. They were actively cultivating it, creating orchards of fruit and nut trees and fertile grounds for crops like manioc and maize. The Terra Preta patches are often found in patterns that suggest planned settlement, supporting populations far larger than previously believed possible. This ancient bioengineering represents a profound philosophy, one of enhancement rather than extraction. These peoples did not slash and burn, depleting the land before moving on. They invested in it, they improved it, leaving behind a legacy of fertility that persists for centuries, even millennia, after they themselves are gone. It is a technology of permanence and reciprocity, a quiet testament to a society that understood its true wealth was not in what it could take from the earth, but in what it could give back. This intimate knowledge of the land, of coaxing bounty from the very soil, stands in stark contrast to a later technology born from a far more brutal relationship with the earth, one that sought not to nurture the surface, but to dominate what lay beneath it. The dark earth of the Amazon nurtured life from the ground up, but another ancient society tackled a problem of geography on a truly monumental scale. The Isthmus of Corinth was a narrow, 4-mile-wide neck of land connecting mainland Greece to the Peloponnese Peninsula. For a sailor in the ancient world, this strip of earth was a maddening obstacle. To sail around the southern tip of the Peloponnese meant adding over 400 miles to a journey, a voyage through some of the Mediterranean's most treacherous and pirate-infested waters. The solution the Corinthians devised was so audacious it seems almost mythical. They would not sail around the land, they would move the ships across it. This was the Diolkos, a stone road for ships, operational for over 6 centuries beginning around 600 years before the Common Era. For a modern mind, picture a massive, purpose-built railroad, but one designed not for locomotives but for triremes. The Corinthians paved a 6-kilometer trackway with hard limestone blocks, grooved with parallel ruts about 5 feet apart. These were not cart tracks, they were guide rails for a specialized wooden cradle mounted on large, sturdy wheels. When a ship needed to cross, it would be unloaded of its heaviest cargo. Then, using a system of ropes, pulleys, and capstans, the vessel would be carefully winched from the water onto this waiting cradle. Teams of men, and likely oxen, would then haul this incredible load, a warship that could weigh over 50 tons, along the grooved stone highway, up and over the gentle summit of the isthmus, and down to the waiting sea on the other side. The logistical coordination was staggering. It required a deep, practical understanding of friction, weight distribution, and the management of large, coordinated labor forces. The financial and strategic benefits, however, were immense. It turned a days-long dangerous voyage into a matter of hours, a naval fleet could be transferred swiftly from the Saronic Gulf to the Corinthian Gulf, outmaneuvering enemies. Merchants could move precious goods securely, avoiding the storms and raiders of the open sea. The Diolkos was more than a clever shortcut. It was a physical manifestation of human will over geography, a declaration that if the sea would not provide a path, one would be carved from the land itself. It stands as a direct precursor to the modern Corinth Canal, dug in the 1890s, proving that the core idea was sound for millennia. This feat of moving massive objects across great distances finds a strange echo in a technology that sought to move not ships, but something far more ephemeral, the human voice itself, across distances that seemed utterly impossible. The Diolkos conquered distance by moving ships, but the Inca Empire faced a far greater challenge of communication across a realm of impossible geography. Stretching over 2,500 miles along the spine of the Andes, this was a world of deep canyons, towering peaks, and thin air. Administering such a territory without the wheel, without draft animals, and without a phonetic writing system seems an insurmountable puzzle. Their solution may have been written not on paper but on the air itself. For decades, historians focused on the tangible, the Quipu for record-keeping, and the unmatched network of royal roads traversed by relay runners called chasquis. These runners could carry a Quipu or an oral message over 200 miles in a single day, an astonishing feat of human endurance. Yet, some researchers now ask if there was a layer of technology operating above and alongside these runners, a system that used the landscape itself as a medium. At certain key administrative centers, like the vast complex of Huánuco Pampa, archaeologists have noted something unusual about the circular storehouses or kolkas that line the plaza. Their shape and construction create pronounced acoustic effects. Stand in the center of one of these structures and speak, and your voice resonates with a surprising clarity and volume. Spanish chroniclers also recorded the use of large shell trumpets called pututos, whose deep, mournful blasts could carry for miles in the mountain air. This has led acoustic archaeologists like Miriam Kohler to propose a fascinating hypothesis. What if the Inca engineered a kind of auditory telegraph? Strategic hilltops, watchtowers, or specially designed buildings could have served as relay stations. A trained operator might use a sequence of pututo blasts varying in pitch, duration, or rhythm to send a pre-arranged code. A two-tone blast could signal the approach of an important official. A rapid series might warn of unrest or an emergency. This coded sound would leap from ridge to ridge, traversing in minutes a distance that would take a runner hours. It would not replace the chasqui for complex information, but it could provide a crucial early alert, allowing the empire's nerve center in Cusco to react with stunning speed to events happening weeks of travel away. The very mountains that divided the empire could become its conductors. While this theory remains under investigation, it points to a society that thought in systems, weaving together physical infrastructure, human skill, and a deep understanding of their environment into a seamless web of control. This web, however, required more than just communication. It demanded a foundational knowledge of the land itself, a science of measurement that began with something as humble as a simple, knotted cord. That web of communication and control required a physical network of astonishing speed and reliability. To govern a territory stretching from the misty highlands of Britain to the deserts of Syria, the Roman Empire needed more than just roads. It needed a system to make those roads sing with information. This was the Cursus Publicus, the public course, a state-run courier and transportation service that functioned as the ancient world's nervous system. Instituted by Emperor Augustus to consolidate his power, it transformed the famed Roman roads from mere paths into high-speed data lanes. The genius was in its infrastructure. Along every major route, at intervals of roughly 1 day's travel, the state maintained two types of stations. The mutatio was a simple relay post, a stable stocked with fresh, government-owned horses and drivers. Here, a courier could swap his exhausted mount for a fresh one in minutes, never breaking stride. For longer journeys, the Mancio provided a full-service rest stop, offering lodging, food, and repairs for both man and vehicle. A government official or imperial messenger carried a vital document called a diploma, a passport of sorts, often made of bronze, that granted him access to these state resources. With this system, urgent dispatches could travel up to 170 miles in a single day, a speed unmatched in Europe until the 19th century. An edict from Rome could reach the governor of Gaul in a week. Military intelligence from the Rhine frontier could be in the emperor's hands with stunning rapidity. The legal codex of Emperor Theodosius II meticulously regulated this system, dictating everything from the types of vehicles allowed to the penalties for misusing the imperial horses. It was, in essence, the internet of its age, a protocol for moving packets of information, whether written on papyrus, carried in memory, or seated in the person of a tax official, across a vast standardized network. This logistical marvel was not a luxury. It was the critical artery of administration, binding a diverse empire into a single, responsive organism. The relentless Roman drive for such efficient systems, for order and speed, was not confined to the movement of people and messages. That same meticulous engineering mindset was applied to the very act of making things, to the tools that built the world around them. The relentless Roman drive for order found its purest expression not in administration, but in the forge. Among the tools recovered from ancient workshops, one stands out for its deceptive simplicity and profound impact: the Roman plane. Before its widespread adoption, wood was shaped with adzes and drawn knives, a laborious process requiring immense skill to achieve a flat surface. The Roman plane changed everything. Its design was a masterpiece of ergonomic efficiency. A thick, flat iron blade, sharpened to a precise angle, was secured within a wooden body or stock with a wooden wedge. The critical innovation was the mouth, a narrow opening in the sole of the plane through which only the very edge of the blade protruded. As the craftsman pushed the tool forward, this blade would peel off a continuous, paper-thin shaving of wood, leaving behind a surface of unparalleled smoothness and flatness. This was mass precision. It allowed for the rapid creation of perfectly straight beams, seamless joinery for furniture and ships, and the intricate moldings that adorned Roman interiors. The plane turned skilled artistry into repeatable, scalable engineering. It democratized fine woodworking, enabling the construction of everything from vast fleets to the delicate inlay of a wealthy patron's home. This tool did not just shape wood, it shaped an aesthetic, a standard of finish that defined Roman material culture. Yet, for all its sophistication, this was a technology of control over the tangible world. Another ancient craft sought to master a material not for its strength or utility, but for its ethereal, captivating beauty, a beauty that could stop time itself. That same mastery over materials reached a level of subtlety that borders on the impossible. Deep within the British Museum rests a small, astonishing artifact from the 4th century, a Roman drinking vessel known as the Lycurgus cup. At first glance, it is a beautiful example of cage cup glasswork, where an outer shell of delicate openwork cages an inner beaker, but then you change the light. In reflected light, under a museum case, the glass appears a serene, opaque jade green. Lift it and let light pass through it from behind, and the entire cup undergoes a miraculous transformation. It glows with the color of rich, translucent wine, a luminous ruby red. For over a millennium, this seemed like pure magic, a trick of the light or a lost alchemical secret. The truth, uncovered only with 20th century electron microscopy, is even more incredible. The glass is impregnated with millions upon millions of microscopic particles of silver and gold, each particle smaller than a grain of sand, smaller than a speck of dust. We are talking about a scale of 1,000th the width of a human hair. This is ancient nanotechnology. The Roman artisans had, entirely by accident, created a colloidal suspension of precious metals in glass. When light hits these nanoparticles, a phenomenon called dichroism occurs. The tiny metal particles scatter the light, but they scatter different wavelengths, different colors, with different intensity depending on the light's angle. The result is that dramatic, reversible color shift from green to red. How did they do it without any concept of particle physics? The leading theory is one of brilliant empirical accident. A batch of glass melt was likely contaminated with a minuscule amount of gold and silver dust, perhaps from a workshop where precious metals were also ground or polished. The artisans, noticing the strange, beautiful effect in the cooled glass, then painstakingly learned to replicate it through trial and error, controlling the mix by adding tiny amounts of metal filings until they achieved the desired spectral dance. They had no idea they were engineering at the atomic level. They simply observed an effect and, through the highest tradition of craft, learned to command it. The Lycurgus cup is therefore a dual wonder. It is a breathtaking aesthetic achievement, a cup that seems alive with captured light. But it is also a profound lesson in how deep observation and skilled hands can stumble upon truths that the mind does not yet have the language to explain. It represents a frontier of ancient technology where art and an unconscious science became indistinguishable. This manipulation of a fundamental force, of light itself within a solid object, finds a parallel in another ancient mastery, one that sought to shape not what we see, but what we hear, using the most permanent of materials. The silent alchemy of the Lycurgus cup manipulated light itself, but in the great open-air theaters of the ancient world, engineers sought to command something equally intangible, the human voice. In the vast stone embrace of a Greek or Roman theater, seating tens of thousands, a whisper from the stage needed to become a declaration heard clearly in the very last row. To achieve this miracle of clarity, architects employed a hidden technology, one described in detail by the Roman engineer Vitruvius. Scattered strategically within the cavernous hollows beneath the stone seating, they placed precisely tuned bronze or clay vases called echia. These were not decorative urns, they were acoustic instruments. Vitruvius specified they be tuned to resonate at specific musical notes, harmonizing with the vocal range of the actors and the instruments of the chorus. The principle at work was one of sympathetic vibration, what we now understand as Helmholtz resonance. When a sound wave from the stage, say a particular pitch sung by an actor, washed over a vase tuned to that same frequency, the air inside the vessel would begin to vibrate in sympathy. This resonance would then re-emit the sound, amplifying it and, crucially, helping to cancel out the muddying echoes that naturally bounce around a large stone structure. Think of it as an ancient passive sound system, using the physics of air cavities to sculpt and project sound. The legendary theater at Epidaurus, renowned for its near-perfect acoustics where a coin dropped at the center of the orchestra can be heard in the top tier, likely benefited from such refined audio engineering, combined with its mathematically precise architecture. This was not a happy accident of design, it was deliberate acoustic science. The goal was to perfect the communal experience of art, to ensure that every nuanced word of a Sophocles tragedy or every note of a musical composition reached every citizen, binding the audience together in a shared sonic space. This profound desire to enhance human capability through technology was not limited to the realm of art and community. It extended inward to the most intimate frontier of all, the human body. The refinement of surgical steel in ancient India was born from a philosophy that saw the human body not as a mystery, but as a system to be understood and healed. In the fertile plains of the Ganges around the 6th century before the Common Era, a physician named Sushruta compiled a text that would become a cornerstone of medical science. The Sushruta Samhita is not a collection of superstitions or prayers. It is a meticulous, systematic surgical manual. Within its pages, Sushruta describes over 120 specialized instruments, each designed for a specific and delicate purpose. The familiarity is startling. He details scalpels of various curvatures for precise incisions, probes for exploring wounds, forceps for extracting foreign objects, and speculums for examining body cavities. If you were to place these iron tools beside a modern surgeon's tray, you would recognize their forms instantly, a direct lineage of design spanning 2.5 millennia. But the tools were only part of a revolutionary system. Sushruta's true genius lay in the protocols that surrounded their use. He insisted on sterilization, advocating for the cleaning of instruments with steam and the use of herbal antiseptics like turmeric and neem, understanding the concept of infection long before germ theory. His profound knowledge of human anatomy, detailing muscles, nerves, and blood vessels with remarkable accuracy, came from a practice that was revolutionary for its time: the methodical dissection of cadavers. This was not done in secret, but as a formal part of medical training, using natural materials to carefully study the body's inner structures. The procedures he recorded are breathtaking in their ambition and compassion. He outlined techniques for cataract surgery, using a curved needle to gently displace the clouded lens and restore sight. He described reconstructive plastic surgery, often to repair noses and ears damaged in conflict or as judicial punishment, using skin flaps from the patient's own cheek or forehead. He even documented early forms of cesarean section and intestinal surgery. This was a medicine of both tremendous skill and profound empathy, aimed at alleviating suffering and restoring function. Sushruta's legacy represents a forgotten zenith of ancient biological science, a holistic system where advanced metallurgy, empirical observation, and compassionate care converged to mend the fragile human form. That same mastery over metal, capable of forging instruments of such delicate precision, was also channeled into creating objects of an entirely different nature, not for healing the body but for contemplating the soul. That same mastery over metal, capable of forging instruments of such delicate precision, was also channeled into creating objects of an entirely different nature, not for healing the body but for contemplating the soul. Yet one such object achieved something that seems to defy the very laws of physics. In the courtyard of the Quipu complex in Delhi, a single piece of ancient iron stands alone. It is not a tool, nor a weapon, nor a piece of ornate jewelry. It is a pillar over 23 feet tall and weighing more than 6 tons. What is astonishing is not its size, though that is impressive, but its surface. After more than 1,600 years exposed to sun, rain, and wind, the iron pillar of Delhi shows almost no signs of rust. In a world where a modern iron nail can begin to corrode in a single season, this monumental column has endured for 16 centuries with a smooth, dark, almost polished appearance. It is a metallurgical ghost, a silent rebuke to our assumptions about the past. Erected around 400 years after the Common Era, likely during the reign of the Gupta dynasty, the pillar was originally a standard bearing an image of the god Vishnu placed atop a hill. It was a declaration of faith and power forged in a single massive piece of wrought iron. For generations, its resilience was attributed to everything from divine protection to secret alien alloys. The truth, uncovered by modern materials scientists, is a testament to brilliant empirical craftsmanship. The secret lies in its composition. The ancient Indian smiths used a unique process that resulted in an unusually high phosphorus content while keeping sulfur levels very low. This was likely achieved through their specific methods of smelting iron ore with charcoal. When this high phosphorus iron is exposed to the air, it does not form the flaky, destructive rust we know. Instead, it develops an incredibly thin, stable, and protective film called mesawite. This passive layer, just a few hundred atoms thick, adheres tightly to the metal beneath, shielding it from further corrosion. It is a self-healing skin, a natural barrier forged not by accident, but by a profound, if intuitive, understanding of their materials. Delhi's relatively dry climate certainly helps, but similar ancient iron artifacts elsewhere have corroded away. The pillar stands because of the specific choices made at the forge. It represents a pinnacle of large-scale metalworking, a technological recipe that was somehow lost in the centuries that followed. Today, the pillar is more than a monument, it is a living laboratory. Scientists study its passive layer, hoping to unlock secrets for modern corrosion-resistant alloys from bridges to spacecraft. It is a humbling reminder that our ancestors could achieve durability we still strive to match, their knowledge encoded not in a text, but in the very molecules of a metal column that simply refused to die. This defiance of decay, this desire to make a material stand outside of time, finds its ultimate expression in a final technology that pursued the opposite goal: to stop time in its tracks, to preserve a moment of life with heartbreaking clarity. The iron pillar's defiance of decay sought to make metal eternal, but another ancient idea sought to capture something far more fleeting, a perfect moment of light itself. In a darkened room, a single tiny hole in a wall can perform a kind of magic. The bustling scene outside, the trees swaying in the wind, the clouds drifting across the sky, all of it appears inside the room, projected upside down upon the opposite wall in shimmering, living color. This is the Camera Obscura, Latin for darkened room, and its principle is one of the most elegant in all of physics. Long before lenses or film, our ancestors were using this simple phenomenon to study the world. The Chinese philosopher Mozi noted it in the 5th century before the Common Era, describing how light travels in straight lines. Aristotle, a century later, observed the pinhole image to safely study a solar eclipse. But it was during the Islamic Golden Age that this curiosity became a profound tool of science. The great scholar Ibn al-Haytham, known in the West as Al-Hazan, used the Camera Obscura in the 11th century to conduct a revolutionary experiment. He demonstrated that vision occurs when light rays enter the eye, not when the eye emits some kind of beam, overturning 1,000 years of Greek thought. He systematically studied how the image's clarity changed with the size of the aperture, laying down the foundational laws of optics. This was not merely observation, it was rigorous, repeatable experimentation. The knowledge traveled west, where in the Renaissance, artists like Leonardo da Vinci adopted the device. They used it as a drawing aid, tracing the perfectly proportioned, perspective-accurate images it projected to achieve a new level of realism in painting. The Camera Obscura became a bridge between art and science, a tool that proved the world could be measured, captured, and understood through light. It is the direct philosophical ancestor of every photographic camera that followed. Every smartphone picture you take begins with this ancient principle of a whole projecting an image. It represents a technology born not from engineering marvels, but from pure, patient observation of a natural phenomenon, a quiet understanding of light's behavior that would one day allow us to freeze time itself. And so we reach the end of our list of 20, but one final idea remains, a technology that was not a device, but a system of thought so powerful it reshaped the ancient world from the inside out. From the ethereal capture of light, we descend to the solid, practical genius of moving water. The ancient world's thirst was not just for knowledge, but for the very element that sustains life and industry. In the bustling shipyards of Syracuse, a problem presented itself to the great thinker Archimedes. How do you efficiently remove the water that seeps into the hull of a massive trading vessel or a warship? His solution was a masterpiece of elegant geometry made physical, a device so effective its basic form has never been improved upon. This is the Archimedes Screw, a simple helix, a spiral, enclosed within a hollow cylinder. Its operation is a quiet marvel. One end is placed in a pool of water at a low angle. As a hand crank turns the spiral within its casing, each rotating coil scoops up a pocket of water. The spiral acts like a moving, enclosed staircase, carrying that pocket of fluid steadily upward along the tube's incline until it pours out the top. The mechanical advantage is profound. A single person turning the crank could lift a continuous stream of water many feet into the air with remarkable efficiency, overcoming gravity through clever design rather than brute force. Ancient historians like Diodorus Siculus recorded its immediate and transformative use. In the Nile Delta, where fields lay above the river's flood stage, the screw lifted life, giving water into irrigation ditches throughout the growing season, turning more of Egypt into a breadbasket. In the silver mines of Roman Spain, arrays of screws, often turned by slaves or animals, worked in stages to dewater deep shafts, allowing miners to reach previously inaccessible veins of ore. The screw did not simply move water, it moved civilizations forward, enabling agriculture in arid lands and wealth from the Earth's depths. Its legacy is its utter persistence. Visit a farm in the Netherlands today, and you might see a modern, electrically powered version still draining polders, land reclaimed from the sea. In factories, the same helical principle moves grain, powder, and even soft solids in processing plants. In some wastewater treatment facilities, the Archimedes Screw gently lifts sewage for treatment, a humble, 3,000-year-old design performing one of modernity's most essential tasks. This is perhaps the purest example of ancient technological thinking, a direct application of geometric and mechanical principle to a fundamental human need. It required no rare materials, no complex gears, just a profound understanding of how shape can guide force. The screw represents a different kind of wonder, not a mysterious artifact or a lost secret, but an idea so perfectly formed that it became a permanent part of our toolkit. It asks us a final, reflective question as we look back across these 20 forgotten wonders. What made these peaks of ingenuity possible, and why did so many of them fade from common knowledge, only to be rediscovered as marvels by later ages? The story of the Archimedes Screw, a perfect tool that never left us, brings us to a final, humbling reflection. From the celestial gears of the Antikythera Mechanism to the self-healing crystals in Roman concrete, our journey reveals an ancient world crackling with a profound kind of electricity. It was not the static of magic or superstition, but the live current of innovation and intellectual daring. These 20 forgotten wonders were not happy accidents. They were the products of relentless observation, of trial and error in the workshop, of a deep and abiding desire to understand the rules of the natural world and then to bend them to human purpose. Each one, from the Viking Sunstone to the Baghdad jar, tells us that our ancestors were not waiting for the future to arrive, they were actively building it. This collection of ghosts challenges a comforting myth, the idea of linear progress. We often picture history as a slow, steady climb from ignorance to enlightenment. But these technologies show us a landscape of brilliant, isolated peaks. Knowledge surged forward in one place, only to recede in another, buried by the sands of time, conflict, or simply the fragility of human memory. The Library of Alexandria burns, and with it perhaps the theoretical texts that explain the Antikythera Mechanism. The secret of Greek fire dies with the last Byzantine chemist. The intricate language of the Quipu is cut and scattered by conquistadors who could not read its knots. As the historian James Burke once observed, knowledge is a kind of ecology. It exists in a delicate web of connections between people, institutions, and materials. When one strand is severed, when a library falls or a craft tradition fades, the entire system is impoverished. We do not just lose an object, we lose a way of thinking. So let this exploration be a call to see with new eyes. Look at the ruins of the past not as dead stones or silent artifacts, but as fragments of a living, thinking world. The rusted gear, the grooved stone road, the patch of dark earth in the jungle, each is a fossilized thought. They are proof that the drive to solve problems, to push boundaries, and to leave a mark on the world is the oldest technology of all. It is a thread that connects the nameless engineer who calculated the slope of a Qanat to the scientist today trying to replicate Roman concrete. The past is not a closed book sitting on a shelf. It is an immense half-lit library, and we have only begun to reopen it. We would love to hear your thoughts. Which of these forgotten technologies amazed or intrigued you the most? Share your choice in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this journey into the hidden corners of history, consider subscribing for more. The next discovery is always waiting just beneath the surface.